I mean, technically, most of the things they said were going to happen happened, so therefore this event is a success. That's it. That's my intro. Hey everyone, you're watching Swell Entertainment, and today we are talking about Romantasy Bookcon that just happened in Los Angeles. And I mean just happened, I mean last night. Now, overall, what you're going to find throughout this video is that there is going to be one main issue for me reviewing things, and that is that I found out about this event on Tuesday. I found out about this event because I follow one of the authors that was attending Victoria Aveyard, and I saw her post on Threads where apparently some attendees were worried they were going to be near the fire damage from the wildfires, which I get it. If you're not based in LA, you may not understand all the different areas. Downtown LA is not near the areas that were affected. But that's when I found out that there was a Romantasy Bookcon happening in my city after I had just canceled a trip for another event that I was going to go to this weekend because of saw a Delta plane flip over. And so I didn't really feel inclined to flying anywhere near snow. So BookCon it is. Romantasy is romantic fantasy, specifically meaning that the romance and the fantasy are intertwined. One cannot exist without the other. Otherwise, then it would be a fantasy with romance, or a romance novel that happens to have fantasy elements and things like that. But like everything is intertwined. They're sharing the bed because there's only one, you know, at the end. But really quick, let me tell you about the sponsor for today's video, Aura. TikTok still is on the chopping block to potentially be banned in the United States. Many things frustrate me about that, but as we saw with the original TikTok shutdown that lasted less than 12 hours, I believe, that US users just straight up lost access to the app. So not only were our accounts vulnerable, but our data was also vulnerable. Big companies with poor security are being hacked all the time, and your data and mine could be vulnerable to scammers and spammers and being sold by data brokers. From your full legal name to your birthday to your social security number and home address, you never know how truly vulnerable your data can be just because of websites that you use all the time. And that's one of the ways that Aura can help, because data brokers legally have to stop selling your data if you ask them to, but they make it incredibly difficult to do so by data brokers that are selling my information and submit opt-out requests on my behalf. Not only will this help protect your information, but this can also lead to less spam. Aura also lets me know if anyone tries to use my information to access my credit or bank accounts, and they give me $5 million in identity theft insurance should the worst case scenario happen. Let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online. Go to aura.com/swell to try it out for 14 days. And thank you again to Aura for sponsoring this video. So I bought my ticket via Eventbrite. I did not find the website initially. I just found the Eventbrite listing. The only ticket that was available left was High Fae, and High Fae was the second highest tier, I believe. You would pay $60 for a day ticket. So technically 2 full day tickets for the convention were available. Okay, with $100 for both. High Fae, which is what I had, which was $325. I think after fees and all of that, it was like $340 something. High Lord or High Lady, $425, and that was the ticket prices. Okay, so Fae got you a day ticket to convention only on Friday or Saturday. Panels, workshops, Q&As. Please note that some panels have limited capacity. Author signings, availability on each day will vary by author. Bronze level swag bag, 1 raffle ticket. Panels, workshops, Q&As. Unless I read your schedule wrong, I don't think you offered enough panels and workshops. Workshops, I understand having a limited number of workshops, especially for what you did. Obviously, I did not make it into any of the workshops. Most of them, I believe, were an additional cost before you got to the event. So that's not even really included in your ticket price. So I don't think saying like you have the ability to go to workshops when most of them cost money on top of your ticket price. I think that's disingenuous. I don't think it's scammy. The opportunity to pay for access to workshops and things like that, I think would be better wording. Panels and Q&As, those were the same thing. Q&As would take place after the panels. Overall, my main complaint for myself as someone who did not go to any book signings because I couldn't get into any, was the fact that I don't think you had enough here for people who weren't waiting in line for book signings with authors. It does look like seemingly every author did maybe 1 panel. Maybe that's all they wanted to do so that you could focus on the book signing. But overall, I don't think you had enough panels, especially for yesterday. Author signings, I didn't know I needed to, 1, download an app and also get authors, register for authors until I was like, I guess I'll check Instagram. I think the moment someone bought a ticket, it should have been an immediate follow-up email, whether you can schedule that or you trigger it, whatever, alerting them that if you would like to do book signings and things like that, you need to register before that. I didn't even know I had to download an app for the event. until I checked your Instagram. Friday, 10 a.m. entrance, convention access. Saturday, full day convention access. Panels, workshops, Q&As. Please note that some panels may have limited capacity. Author signings, availability on each day will vary by author. Realm of Fantasy, Friday night. I forgot about this. I didn't go, chat. I can't review it for you. Apologies.
So I didn't go to the event on Friday night, but Thursday night I was able to because there was an event Thursday night. It was the High Fae Soiree. So I went and got my badge from registration, which they stayed open late, which they just seemed open. It was like 2 to 5. They just stayed open that entire time though because of the High Fae Soiree. Here they had free snacks, but they advertised free snacks, games, and merriment and things like that. Okay. The bar was not free, including sodas, and I refused to buy a drink ticket because sodas as well, that was like an $8 ticket. That's deranged. I'm assuming that's a Biltmore thing because this was operated by the Biltmore for the tickets and all of that. But I feel like at that point, you should be at least offering one free non-alcoholic drink or something like that at an event like this, especially when this is a additional party included in my ticket. They did have coffee and tea. I don't know if there was a water spot anywhere, but there was coffee and tea for free, which was nice with like a cookie bar and stuff. I didn't notice any games here, but they did do karaoke at one point. So I stayed a little bit for karaoke and then I left because it was very loud in this room. It's just not my vibe. It's fine. Everyone was very nice. Some people were dressed up. Some people, I was in I think a t-shirt. It's fine. It's not a big deal. So that is when I got my silver goodie bag, which it was a decent goodie bag. It was a decent goodie bag. It was branded, but the goodie bag also did stain my hands. And I realized that when actually one of the volunteers came up and warned me about it because I was talking with someone and the volunteer came up and was like, be careful because you're eating. The bags are staining your hands. So basically she was warning like, do not eat the staining basically. I thought I had gotten bruises on my hands, but it was actually from the bag. So I don't know if they were fresh printed or what, because it did have the branding on it and the sponsors on it, so I don't know if it was that. Not a big deal, it washed off, but just something to note, that was probably just a last minute printing thing or something.
Silver level swag bag, 3 raffle tickets, Masquerade Ball Saturday night, photo opportunities with professional photographers at the Masquerade Ball, to theme food and custom cocktails and mocktails throughout the event. High Lord and High Lady, Thursday night mixer with 1 premium drink ticket for custom cocktail or mocktail and entertainment. Friday early convention access, panels, workshop, Q&As, capacity applies, author signings, availability varies. 5 raffle tickets, murder mystery performance Friday night, Masquerade Ball with 2 drink tickets, exclusive photo opportunities with professional photographer at Midnight Masquerade, 15% off 1 hair or makeup appointment, 15% off royal afternoon tea, access to themed food and custom cocktails throughout the event. I think you should have offered potentially a secondary option for an author signings for the people who paid more money. Maybe not High Fae, but for High Lord or High Lady, I think you should have been able to at least guarantee they could get 1 signing that they wanted. Like there should have been a follow-up email. Who would you like to lock in now? And they get 1 guaranteed signing that they're locked in with. Fae would be good if you did that as well, but fine if not. Now, again, I'm also speaking as someone who got 0 author signings because they were all full by the time I bought my ticket and became aware that I needed to have a signing registered. There were also ticketed signings as well where you did actually seemingly have to pay to get a signing. I'm not certain. Just think that if you're already paying over $400 for something, I think an extra signing would be fine, especially because like that first night for the High Lords or High Ladies, they had their soiree with the authors as well. Now, obviously, that's contingent on the authors that did come to that event, which I think most of the authors that were already in town went. But you're probably not going to bring your books with you, I don't think. Same with registering for panels and things like that. There should be like first reserve, first call, that type of thing for certain panels and things like that. Because most of the panels, unless I missed them, took place in the Biltmore Bowl room, which was a big room. On the Instagram, it was said that even if you don't register, there would be a standby line available. It was not indicated to me where that standby line was. The first panel I went to on Friday, I walked up and the volunteer was like, can I see your registration? So the people in front of me pulled out the registration and then I showed my registration, which just said you were not registered, registration closed. And I was like, oh, I didn't know I needed to register because I didn't. And she was like, oh, it's fine. Go on in. There's room. Okay. Like, no hesitation. No, can we have you wait or anything like that? Fine. Did I get to go into the panel. Later that day, I went to another panel and I was turned away from that panel. It was already happening. She said, you're not registered. I can't let you in. And she felt bad, but she was like, I can't get in trouble. I was told to not let anyone in that was not registered. So I pulled up the Instagram and I was like, okay, can you show me where the standby is for the next panel? Because that was one that I wanted to see so I can be there and be ready. And she was like, I don't know, but if you just come back at like 2, which I wasn't leaving. So I just hung around. And then as the event, the next panel started filling in and people started filling in, she was like, go ahead and go in. Okay. But that's something where like, she was like, I was not told there was a standby line or things like that. Now, this is just one volunteer, but just a little miscommunication thing. There should have been assigned something. You guys had a lot of signage, which is good. Some of the signage was in some wonky spots at some occasions. And there was also times where when a sign wasn't in use, it was just kind of put against a wall. So that could be confusing. Maybe arrows, even just a giant stuck on arrow with a sticky note. On your app, you had maps. Maps of your layouts of your rooms are helpful if we also know where that room is. Because the maps would be like, oh yeah, here's this ballroom, this ballroom, this ballroom. Okay, but then there were people that didn't understand that to get to the vendor hall, you had to go down like 2 to 3 flights of stairs. I thought I was in line for the vendor hall at one point, and I was accidentally in line for a ticketed signing. And then they were like, oh no, the vendors are down that way further. A couple authors pulled out, seemingly last minute, it seems. Multiple people were sick, at least here in LA. The flu is still going around. I believe pretty much all of them said they were sick. I don't know for certain. Some may have just pulled out for whatever reason. Travel, you never know. Obviously, planes are stressing people out right now. There are some people who don't want to get on a plane. I canceled a trip getting on a plane to be at this thing, so I get it. I saw some people were disappointed on social media about certain authors being removed when that's the person that they bought the ticket for, which is a bummer. When an author pulls out like that, I do think something does need to be said. I didn't see anything on the Instagram, but obviously you're not offering refunds. So maybe you didn't say anything because you were worried about the potential issues with refunds and things like that. But again, if someone's going for the specific person and that person is not there and you're quietly trying to make it look like they're not there. Some people were shared to be taken. Like I would go into a panel and they'd be like, so-and-so is supposed to be here, but they are sick, unfortunately, which people getting sick is not something that you can, prevent, obviously. But I think letting people know so they don't show up and then get mad versus coming in, oh, okay, I'm bummed, but like so-and-so is here, whatever. Something like that would have been good.
Logically, I know how big this hotel is, but like in practice, because like it's a historic hotel, so in my brain I'm like, oh, it's smaller than it actually is. But it's huge.
Maybe Eventbrite is not the move for this because I think that there was a couple of issues with crowding and lines in certain author rooms because we had the vendor hall, which was downstairs in the Biltmore Bowl, and then you had certain ticketed signing rooms. And then you also had 3 ballrooms, essentially, that were dedicated to authors and narrators, which we have a note to talk about with the narrators in a second. Those rooms, in some instances, did have issues with lines blocking other people's booths and causing a potential hazard and things like that. On the first day, there were 3 or 4 authors that were not in the first room that I went into. And so they were using that empty booth as like a line control space, but it still wasn't long enough. I believe some of these authors also did signings as well, but I'm not certain. These are authors that are at these booths that are selling their books, pitching their books, selling artwork and things like that. In the romantasy genre specifically, in most genres that I would say that are very popular on BookTok, there's quite a lot of indie published authors, which in some instances means that it's a hybrid publishing situation where it's like the sense of traditional publishing, but like more control for the author. In some instances, authors are paying to have their books published, but then there's also just straight up self-publishing within that. And then maybe you work with a publisher or to market your book and things like that. And then you also have obviously traditionally published, which is like, the big publishing houses. I have notes about some of this maybe causing some headbutting at a panel that I was at. My point with bringing this up here is that a lot of these authors are self-published. And so in this moment, they are also their booksellers, not just the authors themselves. And so it's important for events like this for these authors to have the ability to, one, show their books, pitch their books, properly be able to sell their books to any readers that might be interested too. So therefore, line control and line management so that lines are not blocking other authors' booths or maybe discouraging someone from wanting to go to the booth. I'm an awkward person. A lot of readers are really awkward. You think any of us really want to cross over a line that's waiting to speak to an author? So I can maybe go talk to another human being because then I have to talk to more people. That's stressful. And I do this for a living.
So there's not a ton of line organization happening. We're all just kind of, there's at least 6 lines happening here right now.
I think in this instance, I'm trying to think of the best way to do this because you really can't measure what author, because like you obviously are like, oh, this author, I'm assuming you maybe looked at like who had more following on certain platforms is my guess. Or something, or book sales, where they went on a list. But I don't think you can truly know what is the draw for attendees unless you like straight up ask them. So I think when you are buying the tickets or selling tickets in the future, you ask, which author are you most excited to see, whether for a signing or to see them, their booth and things like that. And some people won't answer it, but it's something that you can at least ask. So you can at least know where to place them so you can help with line control in some instances. Because there were some instances where they literally had to take a full line and move them to a separate room and then take them one by one because they were blocking too much. And I believe the fire marshal was getting involved or discussion was happening, okay? Because at the end of the day as well, you have to think about the venue you were at and the size of the room. So it's not even just your authors. You have to think about like how things are playing out.
So this is the Crystal Ballroom in one of the authors' rooms. There's a lot happening here.
Met a few authors and or people working with authors who were viewers, so hi. Nice to meet you. I did not buy any books because part of my no buy is buying no books. And I will say this physically pained me. This one was hard. I went to Anime Impulse in Pomona like 2 weeks ago. I expected that to be hard for me because I like nerd shit. And I did very good. I behaved myself in the artist alley. I behaved myself in the collector's expo. I behaved. I didn't buy anything auxiliary past food that I ate that day. And I was like, oh, this is a breeze. And then to walk into this event as a reader who also likes smut, because I'm an adult. I'll admit whatever the fuck I want. And then to go to this event and hear these authors pitch me their book. And to just be like, thank you, and walk away. I didn't buy anything. It did pain me to do so, but I stuck to my no-buy rules of no books. But CD Reese, who I actually follow on TikTok, I didn't realize until after I'd walked away from CD's booth, gave me a ebook download of her novel. So I get to read that. So that's fun. That was free. That was nice. Narrators, let's talk about this. So I did not really talk to any narrators, which it's very cool to have narrators here. I'm not one of those people that personally has like favorite audiobook narrators. I will say that I will not finish an audiobook if the person's voice is annoying. I won't say anything publicly. I'm not a public hater in that way, but I will just stop reading the I won't listen anymore. Like, I'm sorry. I'm already annoyed that I have to read in this fashion because I like to read, but I don't have time to read. So I have to do the audiobook thing. And then if your voice is grating, I'm just gonna turn it off. I don't think any of those people were there. As you guys know, I'm not particularly good with remembering names. So there was no one who's like named as a narrator jumped out to me or anything like that. But I was told, I was made aware that a few narrators may have been charging for photos with attendees. Like one price for a iPhone photo, another price for a camera photo. I know quite a few voice actors that is how they supplement their income. They go to conventions and they sell fan art and things like that, and they charge for photos, and that is how they supplement their income, which is fine. As long as the venue knows you are doing that and the event knows you are doing that. I was told that the organizers found out, came to them and told them to refund everything. Now, again, I did not witness this, so I don't know how true all of this is. I get why someone would want a photo with someone that narrated an audiobook they love or something like that. I totally get that. But again, the charging element, if you feel like you want to charge someone or tip someone or whatever that you are appreciating their work, because I believe audiobooks in particular with those instances, unless they do a sequel or something like that, it's a one-time fee and it's not always a good cost, okay? So I don't think there's anything wrong with being like, if you would like to support my work, here's this. Tip me and I will say something in a line you like or something like that. I don't know, something like that. But it has to be something that I think you've cleared with the event staff. Food options within the hotel. There was a food thing set up in the vendor hall. There was a food thing set up in the lobby, but that was lobby thing and things like that. There were a lot. We're in downtown LA. There were quite a few restaurants on availability. It wasn't too bad, frankly. They charged me, I think, $3 for a soda for lunch. So it's like way cheaper than the bar prices, which I thought was funny at the same hotel. But let's talk about the panel. One of the panels I went to. So you guys obviously know that I have this thing where I'm incredibly nosy. It's why this channel exists. All right, it's how you have content. And so when I am watching a panel and I pick up on a vibe that two people on the panel low-key don't like each other, I get really excited. So the panel this happened on was Everything Has Changed, Romantasy Taking Over the Industry in the World. And this featured Victoria Aveyard, Molly Tullis, Stasia Stark, Day Latau, Laura Thalessa. During this panel, I started picking up on a vibe between Victoria and Day. Now I should disclose, as I mentioned, I follow Victoria. I have read Red Queen and Realmbreaker. I really was not familiar with most of the other authors on the panel, okay? But I was like, oh, Victoria's speaking. This will be a fun panel to go check out. And it'll be also, I figured it would be interesting to see, them discuss Romantasy then versus now and like the industry and how it's growing and things like that. But also I wanted to sit down, so I would have probably gone to any panel, and this was the only one happening at that time. So I go into this panel, and what started it, where I was like, something is going on, and there seems to be some tension between Day and Victoria. They were specifically talking about how it's important for authors to not mislead your readers. Now, I am not talking about like a misdirection or like surprise twist. No. For example, if I am writing a capital R romance novel, okay, pretty much most of the expectation for a lot of romance is that they end up together in the end. Like, let's say I'm promoting my book as a romance, but they actually break up and one of them dies in the end horribly, and it's not like true love is lost. No. Like it became a crime novel at the end, okay? That is me misrepresenting my book to my readers. But they were talking about now obviously the author has no control over what the publisher does or what, marketing does or how readers will talk about your works once you're done writing it. The example that was given was the Cruel Prince series, which is not a romance novel, but Book Talk really got a hold of that book as an enemies to lovers romance, okay? And the romance is a subplot of the novel. It's not a large portion of the novel. And so they were talking about the issues with the fact that people get disappointed and angry with the book because they were told one thing and the book is not what that is. So Victoria and another author were talking about the Cruel Prince specifically and all of that. And Day said, I disagree. Cruel Prince is a romantasy to me. It's an important romantasy to me, which is valid to have a book be something to you like that. And Victoria was like, no, Holly Black says it isn't. The author of the book says it's not. And Dave was like, well, she wrote it, but she doesn't have control over the marketing or things like that. It was just a very weird interaction where I was just like, oh. And I had picked up on a thread earlier where I was like, there's a tone here. You know that polite, low-key argument that kind of happens when two people have microphones in their faces? That's low-key what was happening. Okay, so the panel goes on, everyone's answering questions and all that, and then they open it up to Q&A. Now, I asked a question, which I wish I would have phrased this better. What I wanted to ask essentially was, were there any world-building elements? As I said, fantasy elements, but world-building elements that you were really wanting to incorporate in a book, and then as you were writing or in the editing process, you realize that doesn't fit and I have to cut this. And what was it that you were upset about or something like that? I phrased it horribly. Holly mentioned that for one of her series, there was a lot of prophecies that she had where she was like, I'll figure it out later. And then she realized it was going nowhere. So she had to cut it. And that was a bummer because it sounded cool and things like that. After Holly answered, I saw Victoria look to the moderator as okay, next question, let's pick the next one, which most of them did, okay, which fine. It's just you don't have an answer, it's no big deal. But then Day said, that's the good thing about being indie is nothing has to get cut. Book 2 is 600 pages and it's great. And then Victoria answered and she said, yeah, it's called Kill Your Darlings, which I do know about Kill Your Darlings. That wasn't what I was necessarily referencing because in my brain, I consider Kill Your Darlings with killing off characters and things like that but I guess it applies as well to plot elements and things like that. And she was talking about how as a traditionally published author, it can actually be helpful when she finishes the book and she gives it to her editor and the editor has it for a month. She doesn't think about it. She doesn't look at it. And to have that second pair of eyes is actually very valuable because you realize that that thing was not relevant and it didn't need to be there and it doesn't fit anymore and to cut it. And so I was like, oh, I see what's happening here. Not out loud, but in my brain, I was like, yes, this is the traditional versus self-published author headbutting, I think is what's happening here. Victoria Aveyard is traditionally published. She has never hidden the fact of her feelings of being traditionally published and her feelings of indie publishing and things like that. I've seen it on her TikToks and the like. And so I don't know if that was it, but that's what I figured it was this was just a fundamental, not determined to misunderstand each other, but like just I don't think in this, especially in the modern day, okay, which I think each version, traditional and self-published, has their own benefits to that, which Victoria herself even acknowledged earlier in the panel, that what used to be valuable about traditional publishing is that one of the elements that was taken off your plate as an author was the marketing, and that the publishers would then focus on marketing. However, now that's been being put back onto the authors, which a lot of authors that are traditionally published have shared going on. And that's why a lot of authors have been forced to also do content creation simultaneously and advertise their books, even though they are quote unquote traditionally published. That's one of the ways that things have changed. Whereas obviously self-published authors, they've always been, self-promoting. I think there are different pluses and minuses. I'm not going through all of them. Obviously, that's not what this video is. But I just feel like this is kind of one of those things where both authors think they are right on this one fundamental issue. And therefore, because their whole world is their writing, they're ready to defend both. And so putting everyone on a panel together just kind of led to a lot of little butting of heads. A great panel. I enjoyed myself, and I love a side of tea. I left not long after that panel. Frankly, I was tired, and that's why I forgot about that other event, frankly. So I just left. So I can't review that other event that night. So Saturday, I get there a little later. I was only able to really make it into one panel, which ended up being the last panel of the day that ended at like 2. The ball starts at 8. That means that what else there was to do was to go to the bookstore, which was run by The Ripped Bodice, which is a romance bookseller here in LA, who I've actually bought quite a few books from. Then there was also, again, book signings if you had registered from that, or again, wandering around the vendor hall, which was all in all fairly small, or wandering around the author rooms and things like that. There wasn't a ton more to do or to see. This is where I think you needed another panel room that may have been smaller, but then that way you had more panels. Because I do think you could have had way more panels. You just gotta keep people busy at a certain point. Like that's really helpful to keep things functioning and keep lines down for certain spaces and crowding down, is when you have a ton of your attendees in a panel. So I think more panels in the future would be good. I did a few laps and then killed time in my car to charge my phone. And then I went and got dinner and changed in the bathroom and then went to the Masquerade ball.
Hi, I changed in a bathroom stall. I don't have a eye mask, but so not quite fitting the Masquerade.
Because like I said, bought this ticket last minute. I had already committed to going to my friend's birthday party. So I left very early from the Masquerade ball. But I went and I checked every single room, had some snacks, got some footage, and then I left. Did I stay long? No. Do I think I needed to? No, because that's the thing with a lot of these romantasy and book-based events or book-inspired events. People forget events are expensive and they don't realize until the event is happening. It doesn't really matter how the Masquerade ball ended, because the fact that it even happened when they had mostly like desserts and cakes and things like that for the food. And then for drinks, it was that one drink ticket, and they had the drinks that were designed or laid out by a couple of the authors, it looked like. They had a bunch of photo spots set up and one hallway that was designed with the authors in mind for various series like the Guild series and A Court of Thorns and Roses, etc., with cosplayers that were there if you wanted to take photos of the characters. I assume that if anyone was also dressed as these characters, if they had been like, can I just get a photo on the set without you in it? I'm assuming that would have been fine. I have not heard otherwise. Obviously, I was not dressed in any of these characters' styles, so I didn't go in. But I asked about the props that were there. And apparently, for at least the sets and things like that for the books, some instances, the authors brought their own backdrops, but things were rented specifically by the event organizers for those setups. It's not like they were like, what do you have? And then added them in from what was in the hotel. And then certain extra set pieces and things like that, like the dragons and this spooky chair that I sat in that had the Grim Reaper on it that I thought was funny. They were just like, yeah, this one didn't fit the vibe, but we figured we would have a place for it. And now it's here. That's fun. I do like that. I appreciate that. You did decorations. That's all I ask for these events. You did mood lighting. The bar is in hell.
Hi. Looks like you got yourself into quite the pickle. I don't really know how to help you here. You're inside his head. This is dumb. I don't know. It made sense in my head.
Yeah, then I left. That's kind of it. Nothing else crazy. Yeah, my overall recommendation, I guess, is just more panels, more communication. I would rather have too much communication than not enough communication. You know what I'm saying? When the Masquerade Ball was about to start, one of the organizers yelled into the hallway where everyone was to explain how the Masquerade was working, because the Masquerade was described as going to take place in multiple locations, which just meant it was in multiple rooms inside the hotel that had previously been designated for various things. Like the Biltmore Bowl was one of the ballroom spaces, but even the Biltmore Bowl was like fairly empty when I was leaving because a lot of people didn't know. You yelled it, but like I was very close to you and I could barely hear you. That's where you get a megaphone or a microphone or designate someone who can scream louder. Or you have signs on each door that indicates where the balls are. I feel like at that point it's like, oh, this is the rooms that it'll be in, you know, on the map, which is something that I think you could have indicated better. Oh, your guys' art. Did you use AI art? There was also like 2 authors at least in one of the rooms that I was fairly certain had AI art on their covers. And I was gonna ask, and I decided against it because I didn't want to be an op in this space. But I just didn't talk to them the rest of the time because at least one of the things was AI art. Your logo, the book looks a little suspicious. The dragon and the leaves and things like that, those look accurate. The book looks a little suspicious. Also, your cover art with the red dragon art with the woman and the dragon, was that AI? Because I feel like you would have credited an artist if it was artist made. I would love to know if it's artist made because it's beautiful. But I was like, you know, which I should note as well, that some fantasy art style does have that dreamlike quality. You see heavily in AI art to like blur edges and things like that. So that's why I'm saying I didn't confront anyone. I'm just posing the question. If you have the artist name, I would love to hear what it is. Would I go again? Not opposed. Would like more panels. It's in LA. LA events are easy for me. Would definitely try and get some of my books signed. That would have been cool. Also would like to go when I'm not doing a no by year so I can actually support authors. I will say the vibes overall for attendees as well. Everyone was very sweet. Everyone was very willing to talk and everyone was complimenting people's outfits and cosplays and things like that. So that's always fun to see as well. This is definitely one of those events where like the vast majority, like 85% of attendees are women or women presenting. And so that's really great to see, you know, the vibes be good, you know? So if that's something that you're worried about, like, I want to go to a fantasy event, but like, I don't know about X, Y, and Z and things like that. Like, I think this is a good event to go to just because the vibes were good. And that's sometimes all you need to know to go in and have a good time. Friday was crazy busy. Saturday was way less busy to the point that when I pulled up and was walking up to the hotel, I thought it was canceled and no one told me. That's how empty it looked, which it wasn't empty, but like the crowd was way smaller on Saturday. So something to note. But that being said as well, if you go Saturday and not Friday for a one-day Fae ticket, then you have to run the risk of like the books you may buy in the Ripped Bodice might be sold out, because books were sold out by the time I got in there that morning. So something to know.
After I recorded, Fabled Fantasy Events, which is the event company that puts on Romantasy Bookcon, put this out to announce the event for next year and some updates that they were going to be making.
Oh, if anyone from the Ripped Bodice sees this, if you guys ever want to talk about WalkCon, because that's one of the times I bought from you guys was when you were running the book table at WalkCon in 2022. If you ever want to discuss that, hit me up. Did you go to Romantasy Bookcon? Did you see me and think I was working so you didn't say anything? Because that does happen on occasion where I get DMs later like, I didn't want to bother you. It's fine. Do you read romantasy? Do you read romance books? Do you read fantasy books? Do you hate the word romantasy? Are you an author? Do you also like when you are watching a panel, it doesn't have to be at this event, but any panel, and you realize that two people on the panel don't really like each other, let me know. Comment down below. Reminder, I stream on Twitch. My Swell Entertainment is now available on Spotify. Reminder to use code SWELL for 10% off on Gamer Subs. Shout out to my channel members. Thank you so much for supporting me on channel memberships. If you also support me on channel memberships, it'll be linked down below. If you'd like to follow me on all social media, that'll be all up here. And that's going to be a hell of a day. Goodbye. Once again, I forgot I had a tiara. Could have filmed this whole video like this, but I digress.